What's up, and welcome to the Music Hustlers podcast, the show with real-world advice on how to take your band to the next level. My name is Kenny, and I'll be your host. Today, I've got a good friend of mine, Brandon Kellum from American Standards. What's up, man? How are you?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you. I'm excited to just chat and see what happens.
During the times we're in right now, I couldn't lie and say I was out doing something else, right? And we are sitting the CDC recommended space apart.
Oh, yeah.
Except for if you're watching the video, you know that's not true. But for those listening to the audio, 6 feet.
6 feet, absolutely. We stayed,
We sound different with the masks on.
That's true.
Yeah.
We should have worn masks. That would have made it. That would have made it so much better. Cool, man. So really, what I wanted to talk to you about today is, I know you've been in the scene. You're wearing a Darkness Before Dawn t-shirt. I know you've been in this scene for a long time, and I just kind of wanted to talk to you about how have you grown as a musician, spending so much time in the music industry and just playing shows, being part of a band and all of that.
Yeah, man. So my first show was in 2001.
Oh, wow.
At the Mason Jar.
Oh, I remember.
Which is now the Rebel Lounge.
Yeah.
So literally almost 20 years doing this. So if you would have asked me back then when I was in high school if I'd be doing this, on the other side of 30, I probably wouldn't have thought I would be, A lot's changed, man. I think the biggest thing that's changed is my perception of how I approach the band. I used to define myself by the band a lot.
Yeah.
And I think everybody does that. When you ask somebody, tell me about yourself, they say where they work or, if you have a hobby, what your hobby is.
Yeah.
And that was 100% me. It was the band was me. There was no difference between me and the band.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel that.
And so much of my happiness was dependent on how well the band was doing. So also when the band wasn't doing well, full frustration and stress,
Yeah.
Now I think over the last few years, I've kind of separated myself from the band in the sense that I'm my own person. I'm doing my own thing. When the band works, that's awesome. When it doesn't work, I've got all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I think it's also changed my perception on other people too, because I think there's so many people in the scene that I've known for 15, 20 years. I always think, oh, that's so and so from this band, and that's so. And if you looked at my phone, every person's name is the city that I met them in or the band that they're in. But to think that everybody's more than just the hobby that they have,
Yeah.
And that's made this whole thing so much less stressful, and it's easy now, when it works, and we play shows. Now we have a reason not to be as active because of quarantine. But truly, it's just because we don't feel like we have to be out there all the time we used to. We used to accept every show we got offered and put ourselves out there as much as possible. Now it's people come to us and we say, yeah, we want to do that, or no, it's just not the right time.
Yeah, I feel that. That's cool, man. So how has going from going from playing, all the time to not playing as much, how has that really affected your personal life?
I'm so much more enjoyment, man. I've got time to do other stuff, Because, the whole hustle of this all is, it was literally a 24-hour thing. It was, nonstop responding to messages and reaching out to promoters and, just pushing the band all the time.
Yeah.
And it was every free moment I had, I was consumed with the band, which was great. It gave me something to do that was productive instead of, playing video games or watching TV all day or something. Nothing against that, but, it gave me something to do, but at the same time, like I said, it's when you put all your happiness into one thing.
Yeah, I feel
it's taxing,
Yeah.
So now it's just like I said, we play the shows that we want to play, and we don't feel like we have to accept every show. We don't have to accept some random bar show at some place we've never been to on a Tuesday night with bands we've never heard of,
Yeah, I feel that.
Although we love playing, it's the times that we do play now mean a lot more to us.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about touring, man. We used to tour a lot. We actually, I think it was just maybe about 6 months ago or so, we got that notification on Bands in Town, the app where you put all your concerts and stuff like that for concert calendar. We played our 400th show or something like that.
Oh, nice.
Which is 400 shows. It's just a shit ton of
Yeah,
shows.
that's a lot of
And we
shows.
used to go out there and tour for weeks at a time, and now it's just man, I love going out for a week. Everything feels fresh and new. Then right when you jump into where it feels like a routine and it feels like a job, we dip out, we go back home, and we do our own thing,
I feel that.
That's great.
That. That's cool, man. So, all right, let's talk about tour then. Let's talk a little bit about tour. What's your most exciting place that you've ever played?
Man, there's been a lot, and honestly, some of the most exciting places were probably the the most like hole in the wall cities we've never heard of, you know?
Yeah, I feel that.
Like we played we did a tour with our good friends in Steak Sauce Mustache last year, and we played just so many random places. We played like a roller skating rink. We
Nice.
played a bicycle shop. We played a pizza parlor. We played a Chinese food restaurant. So like
Nice.
all these places that like aren't typically meant for shows. And those were some of the most fun shows, and they're mainly in cities that we, outside of like Seattle and Portland, they're mainly like small cities that we hadn't even heard of nor been to.
Yeah.
And those, like, I think those DIY, like, hole-in-the-wall places are sometimes the best thing. So,
Absolutely, yeah. No, I talk a lot about, on this podcast, I talk a lot about being DIY. So doing those, you know, DIY.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one time I played in an arcade. Like, it was
Hell
the
yeah.
coolest thing. We played on the bumper cars floor.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
And those
But,
are, like, really the memories that you make, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's
absolutely.
cool playing a big venue and everything, but it's like, let's be honest, like, we're in metal bands, playing a big venue that holds, like, hundreds or thousands of people and having it like 20% full.
Yeah.
I'd much rather play in the back of some Chinese food restaurant
Yeah.
where kids are just raging on top
Yeah.
of each other because there's no space.
Absolutely. No, I feel that, man. I played this one place in Florida. I think it was Odessa, Florida, and it was like literally a garage about the size of this room. It was probably like 5-10 feet,
Yeah.
wide. And 5 to 10 feet.
That's-
It was like 8
It's the
to
size
10
of this
feet.
couch.
Yeah, it was the size of that couch right now. But no, it was a super small place, and like you're saying, people were just getting rowdy and all that. So I agree, man.
And those are the people that are like into the music
Yeah,
too. Like they come for not only the music, but they come for the community, which I think is a big thing too. Is like when you play, like we've kind of took this big swing where we started off for the first couple years playing with the same bands at the same venues over and over again, and it was great because it was like this really tight community, right? So you'd see the same kids every show. It'd be the same like 40 or 50 kids at every show because they knew all the bands. Everybody knew each other, and that was really cool. But then we took this big swing where we started getting offered a lot more national shows. So we're playing with bands that like we looked up to, bands that we've been listening to for 10 or 20 years. And we realized that we weren't shit, man. Like we'd go in front of these crowds, and we've been a band for 10 years. And not one person in this crowd really knew who we were, nor knew that we were from the city that they're from, So it's like when we're playing like for like Zayo and Every Time I Die and stuff like that, it's like you got a crowd of hundreds of people and it's a huge, huge venue, but that community feel isn't there as much because these are people that like only go to the big shows at the big venues. Whereas like when you play in like Odessa in a garage, like those kids have been to dozens of shows and they probably go out to shows every week, So it's just a much different vibe from when you're playing a huge venue. And like lots of times especially when you're playing with those throwback bands, these are people that have to think about getting like a babysitter and stuff, and they don't know who the local bands are, and they're not going to go to your garage show the following week,
No, I feel that absolutely. And that's one thing that I like about the DIY nature is just like how dedicated people get. Cool. So let's talk about like the vibe of your music, because you guys are Southern metal. You're one of the fewer Southern metal bands here in Arizona.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you've been doing it for so long, and I'm just like I'm so impressed by how long American Standards has been able to like be relevant.
Yeah, I don't know about relevant, but I think our relevancy peaked about 8 years ago. No, honestly, it's kind of funny because I feel like the music that we play is music that we listened to back then. When we started and we first started talking in 2010, put out first album in 2011. That was the music that we were listening to back then, and then it kind of fell off the scene, and now it's starting to come back. You got bands like Vane and Knock Loose and stuff like that, metallic hardcore or whatever you want to call it, that's starting to pop off again. And it's like we were there from the beginning there all the way to, not the beginning, that was probably like the second wave, but we were there from back then and now seeing it come back up, and everybody like, that's another wild thing is like playing some of these shows with these bands. It's like people will come up to us at the merch booth and be like, "Oh, you guys sound just like so and so," and it's like a band I've never even heard of, because it's a band that's been around for like a year or something. But I'll listen to them like, "Oh shit, yeah, this does sound like 1998 Zayo or something."
I feel that. Cool. So like, what inspires you? Like, why do you play that kind of music?
I don't know. Like, I think I've always just kind of liked the fringe style of it. Like, not in the mainstream. Like, we're not a band that's for everybody by any means.
Yeah.
And we're not even a band that's for everybody that listens to metal or even metalcore. It's like, there's going to be some people that listen to, I'm trying to think of like a relevant metalcore band. I don't know. Periphery or something,
Yeah.
you know, some mainstream bigger band. But people that listen to them, they listen to us, and we might not be their cup of tea, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of like that because like I think it goes back to the community. It means the people that are coming to the shows are just more dedicated and more about it.
Yeah.
So it's
I
like
feel
you
that.
kind of whittle it down, you know. It's like I don't even, for the most part, I don't even tell people I'm in a band anymore. You know, if they don't know I'm in a band, I don't need to tell them I'm in a band because I know we're not going to be for most people.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Especially like when it comes to work and stuff. You know, I'm not around the office like, yo, come check out my metal band because I'm going to scare away some people.
You want to come watch me scream in your face?
Yeah, so it's like if you like, that's why like kind of going back to like I don't define myself by the band. I think like I let people get to know me first.
Yeah.
And then if they listen to the band, they might like the band, they might not. That's fine. But I feel like if they listen to the band first, they already have a perception on me. You know?
Yeah, yeah. No,
which is
I
kind
feel
of a different thing because like I think especially in heavy music, 'cause, like the perception of people that aren't into that when they hear a heavy band are like, oh, these like. You know, whatever, Satan worshippers or something,
Yeah.
or these tough guys, you know, like that just want to fight and stuff. It's like that's the furthest from the truth.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
If anything, when I see people crowd killing at our shows, I'll be like, I'll try to shut that stuff down, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, man. That's cool. So let's. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Dipper. I don't know if you
Oh,
saw
that guy. Yeah. Actually, I did know much.
Yeah, I don't know if you. Oh, you did. Oh,
Yeah.
Good. Cool. Yeah. He, as you know, he likes to talk about you.
Dipper's a great guy.
But he brought up how you've got so much stamina on stage, and I've seen it firsthand. Like you can kill it. You're a
Thanks,
wild
man.
man on stage. I wanted to ask you, like, do you do anything like to help you with that, or?
I don't think I used to. So like when I was younger, it just kind of came
Yeah.
naturally, right? I think there's a sense of adrenaline. Like,
Yeah.
You don't like. I don't know if you get this when you're playing music, but it's like I feel like almost when I'm on stage, I'm so in the moment
Yeah.
that afterwards people will tell me about stuff that happened on stage, like, oh, like when you did this or when Corey did this, and it's like, oh, really, that happened? Or I'll watch a video, I'm like, oh shit, like it's just that adrenaline
Yeah,
that
I feel that.
pushes you through. I do think now that, you know, like I said, I'm on the other side of 30, it's like I am actively like eating better and trying to work out and things
Yeah.
like that to just not feel like a piece of shit afterwards. And I don't go as hard before the show because I used to like, especially like when I was doing the hostage situation, that was like we would go as hard as possible before every show. And then when you're sweating out whiskey and beer, afterwards you just feel like garbage,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So it's, I don't go as hard before the shows anymore. You know, I'll have a couple Jack and Cokes, but like I'll maintain.
I feel that. Cool. So how do you maintain your vocals? Like, do you?
It's horribly.
Horribly?
No, it's, I think honestly at this point I probably just scarred up the throat enough to just for it to withhold it. But it's I don't like if you listen to it, like I think most people like it's interesting when I like do guest tracks on people, like guest vocals on people's tracks, and I actually see other screamers in the studio. Because I'm like, dude, like you're screaming like lower than you're actually talking, like because people, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do is you're
Yeah.
supposed to hold it in and you know zen of screening. I don't do that at all. So like I am like feet away from the mic because that thing's clipping because I'm yelling as loud as I possibly can. And I used to lose my voice a little more often, especially when we're out on the road and we're doing 2 or 3 weeks of shows in a row. But now, yeah, just it holds up. Typically, like. Normally the day, like if it's during the daytime before the show, like if I had a show the night before, I'll be like a little worried because I'll get like, for some reason I don't know if this is just me thing, but I know like if I try to do like do like a high low voice like that, if I can't do that, I know my voice is shot. And the day like the daytime before the show, like I'll try to test and be like, all right, how am I gonna be tonight? And there are times where I'm like, I'm just not gonna pull this off.
Yeah.
But going back to the adrenaline thing, second you get on stage, it just seems to come naturally, you know?
Yeah,
So-
I feel that, and I agree, man. When you're in the moment of the heat of the moment, playing a show, and you've got the crowd there, you got that, it amps you up and makes you want to just kind of give your all every time. And I'm the same way, man. Whenever I'm playing music, I absolutely tune out everything. I'm just like.
Yeah.
I give 110%. So.
Yeah, and there's been times that I've tried to like not go as hard when I yell, like just to yell the way I guess that they say you're supposed to yell. I don't really think you're supposed to yell at all, but like the technical side of yelling. And I've been in bands where I've done that, where you're doing like the fry screams and all that stuff like that. But I don't know, there's something about like with American standards, it just doesn't work for us,
Yeah. I feel
Me, it's just everything you hear is me giving it my all and yelling at the top of my lungs. And it's like, it's a different feel and it's a different energy than when you're holding it in, you know.
Absolutely.
And nothing against, because it works for a lot of bands. Some of my favorite bands do that. Like they do. Most of the bands that are on the road are doing that. Or you can listen from their first album to their later albums, and you realize that they have to start doing that, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just that American Standard, just the energy needs to be full force all the time, and sometimes it is losing my voice. But now for the most part, I think it's just kind of put up with it, you know.
Yeah, I feel that. Cool, man.
Hell, I remember actually. We did a show with, it was Rings of Saturn and Winds of Plague, and right before the show I had to go to the doctors and get a upper endoscopy where they put, they stuff the thing down your throat to like look for vocal nodes and stuff like that. So I've been in that point where I'm like, dude, like I might have seriously fucked up my voice, and then 2 hours later I'm on stage screaming.
That's wild, man. That's that's next level. But
luckily it didn't happen. So.
That's good. That's good. Cool. So let's segue a little bit. How do you write your lyrics? Because I know your music's very raw.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of curious about that.
Honestly, I have a notepad on my phone, and I'm just constantly like putting down lines. So like if you and I are having a conversation and like you say some kind of like phrase that just catches my ear, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, and I'll put it on the notepad and just let it sit there for a while. Or if I'm watching a movie, reading a book or something, I'm just constantly adding to that notepad.
I feel that.
And then when it comes time to write, Corey will have a couple riffs, and Corey does like what I call riff soup. He basically just writes dozens of riffs and then like kind of puts them out there, and then I'm sitting here like saying, okay, we should repeat this and we should do this here. And once I vibe with that, then I go back to that notepad and I say, okay, these kind of lines fit to it. I'll take maybe out of, hundreds of lines, 2 lines, and then just build off of that.
Nice.
So it's just whatever really fits the mood for me.
I feel that. Yeah, I like to ask that question because lyrics are, my thing. I'm a lyricist. I've written lyrics since I was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
What do you like when you write? Do you typically like to write like personal like stories or things that have happened to you, or do you write like off the wall like things that are concepts and stuff like that?
I think everything up to Anti-Melody was more like socio-political. It was more like looking outward at like what was going on in the world and more commentary on that, and use a lot of like metaphor and satire in that. But then with Anti-Melody, right before, or actually kind of during the process of writing, that's when my father passed away, and then our original guitarist Cody committed suicide. And that Anti-Melody was the first album that we put out that was actually all like internal, all personal.
Yeah.
I think maybe throughout like some of the other albums there might have been a song here or there that was like sprinkled in that was personal, but for the most part it's all looking outward. But since Anti-Melody, and then into Weep and Phantom Limb, it's been very personal.
Yeah, cool, man. A question I wanted to ask you about too, or I forgot to ask you when we were talking about it.
We'll edit it and make it sound like it fits in there.
Yeah, there you go. We'll just have one jump cut.
Paste, yeah.
Oh, that'd be funny. I wanted to ask you though, so being a DIY tour band, what is like one lesson that you say that you've learned over it all that you're like, okay, this is, if I had it all to do it over again, this is how I would do it differently?
Let's see. One lesson. I mean, if anything, you've got to like the people that you're in a band with.
Yeah.
Or be able to tolerate them, because the funny thing is like when you see like your friends and they're on the road on Instagram or Facebook or social media, whatever. To keep this timeless, we'll cut out the references because whatever social media is next, But you'll see them like, and it's always them doing this big grand thing, right? Like they're standing in front of those fucking dinosaurs in California or something.
Yeah.
They're like it's just snippets, and then they're playing the show.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's great. Like they must be having so much fun. But the reality of tour is like, you're in a van for 7 to 8 hours a day, driving to the venue.
Yeah.
And then if you don't enjoy the people that you're with, like the show itself is like 30 minutes, sometimes less than that.
It's the smallest
So it's the
part.
smallest part of the day is actually playing music. The biggest part of the day is like killing time between one show and the next show,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely that. I mean, there's other, like, from a technical perspective, just like, bringing extra stuff, bringing a phone charger, bringing a car charger, those things.
Yeah.
All those things are important and everything, but honestly, the only thing that really matters is that like you enjoy the people that you're with, and you're doing it for the right reason. I mean, like if there's any lesson I've learned in the band, it's like or with life at all is like you have to get out of it what you're putting into it, and if you feel like you're putting too much into it and you're not getting what you want out of it, that's when you're gonna just give up and you're gonna get frustrated. You know, I think that's why most bands like. I mean, the life cycle of a band is like a year or two.
Yeah.
Most bands don't last past a couple of years, if even that.
Yeah.
And it's because like they have these like big ideas like of like we're gonna get signed and then we're gonna be touring the world and we're making all this money, and it's like that doesn't happen, man.
Yeah,
especially like today, that really doesn't happen very often at all.
Yeah.
So it's like you really have to have realistic expectations, and you at the end of the day you've got to like the people and you got to like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if all you expect is to be out there with your friends, then when you play a show to 5 people, that's 5 people. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool. 5 people came to see us.
Yeah.
And you don't get bummed because like, oh, it wasn't a sold out venue, you know?
I like that a lot. Realistic expectations, man. That's one thing that like I feel like a lot of bands when they're brand new or they're fresh, they have these grand ideas. They're like, oh man, I'm gonna tour, I'm gonna go across the world, all this, I'm gonna make all this money. But like in reality, especially in heavy music, like it's not it's not impossible to make a living off of it. It's not impossible to be successful in it by any means, but it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you have to, be realistic about what you're expecting from, it might be your first tour or something like that. And you have to be, I like that, man. That really stuck with me.
I think, honestly, any band could make a living out of the band. Like, I mean, there might be some that can't, but I really think that any band that's willing to put in the work and tour nonstop could probably make enough money to survive on the road. Yeah. But there's very few bands that when they come back from the road, if they've got a couple months of not touring, they're going to be able to, like, have enough money to survive. And that's even, looking at any of those big bands, like in metal or metalcore or anything, there's very few bands that could do that. That's why most of the guys have a side hustle.
Yeah.
They're recording on the side, they're tattooing, they're doing whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, hell, even we played a few shows with our Treyu a while back. We did like their, 15 year or something like that.
Yeah.
And even those guys, not to say they're super relevant now, but even those guys, how huge they were at one point. I mean, their drummer is still like doing drum lessons at every city they visit. Their like singer still tattooing in the back of the venue, like just to make some side money. Yeah. Because it's almost impossible unless you're like a merch machine, just selling merch nonstop. Yeah. To make enough money off the shows itself or streaming, like the 0.003 of a penny you get for every stream. I mean, hell, like we get a Spotify check, I think, every month for like $25 or something. You split that between the 5 guys. We're not paying our car payments.
I feel that, man. Well, yeah, no, that's definitely that's true, man. I talk a lot about how musicians, there's so many options for side hustles and things like that that every musician, I believe, if you're gonna be a touring band or be that type of band, that it's a good idea to have some sort of side hustle. And that's interesting that you mentioned a band as big as Atreyu having having that.
Yeah, and bands that have been around for, like I said, 10, 20 or more years. That's what, you're also seeing all these bands from like back in the days, like back in the like 80s, 90s and stuff that are out on the road again touring because they're not making money off their CDs like they used to. Yeah. So you've got to like play the shows to sell merch. Yeah. It's a weird time.
That's true, man. And we've got all these bands that are doing reunion shows and all that, all these 90, 2000 bands.
Those are all the bands I feel like we're playing. Like we always get asked to play. Is always like, you want to play this 10-year reunion or 15-year reunion? Yeah. And those are cool because, like I said, it's always like bands that we've looked up to. But at the end of the day, those aren't people that are really going to shows. Yeah. And it's also sometimes it's I don't know if humbling is the right word, but it's interesting to hear their perspective because it is like guys that that's all they've done their whole life, and they started in their teens or their 20s, and now they're 30, 40, sometimes even older, and it's like, well, what else am I going to do after I've done this for 20 years, unless they've got a side hustle to fall back on.
That's true, man, that's true, and it's it's kind of hard to create a retirement plan.
Off a metal band.
Especially for 5 different guys, it's not like you got a 401k or something like that.
I sometimes feel jealous when I see like the like people in like hip hop and rap and like just solo artists. Like all you gotta do is rely on yourself. Like you don't gotta get like, we're recording this in the practice studio, you don't gotta get 5 people to show up to a practice studio at the same time and all be able to pitch in money and all have their own gear and stuff. It's like that's very difficult, you know. So when I see people that have a solo, like a side gig, I'm like, that'd be nice.
I feel that, man.
I mean, even I, like, typically I'm, you know, much earlier than I need to be to whatever we're doing. But even I was like 5 or 10 minutes late. So then I have to, for my guys, I have to, like, I go off the band time. So if we have to be, like, if we're doing a practice at, like, say 5 p.m., it's like, yo, we got the practice space saved for 4 p.m. We really don't, but I need to make sure that they're there by 5.
I feel that, man.
And they'll roll in at like 4:55.
Yeah, no, definitely sometimes when you have to rely on other people. That's why I talk about, you know, making, and back to your point about making sure you like the guys that you're in a band with. Like, you know, if you fuck with the dudes, you're, you know, everybody's gets along well and all that, and you guys are on the same page, then you're ultimately going to create something better than if you're, you know, just in a band together just because you want to be in a band.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, that's very true. There's a lot of people I feel like are just in a band because, like you said, they want to be in a band. They have this idea that, like, a label's going to knock at their door, and then the next day they're going to be huge, you know?
No.
And I think you could see that in a lot of bands, man. Like, when you see them on stage, you can tell that they're not into the music. They're just like, especially always a bass player. It seems like the bass player's just along for the ride, man, you know?
He's just vibing, bro.
He's just like up there. It's like, do you have an opinion on what we should write in this song or what we should do? It's like, nah, man. It's just whatever.
I'm just here, bro.
Yeah. So it's like you really have to be passionate about it. And I think it's rare. We don't have a lot of bands in Arizona that I see that, like, where you can tell that it is like truly 5 guys or 4 guys are all on the same page, or girls.
Yeah.
They're on the same page and that are like 100% in it, you know? Normally it's 1 or 2 guys that are pulling all the weight and the other guys are just along for the ride.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I mean, you gotta be committed to it. You gotta love it 100%. If you want it to, you know, be something, if you want something out of it, then you have to love it, you know? You have to really be about it, man. Cool. So let's wrap this up.
Cool.
I like to end every interview with one specific question, and I know that everything that we've said has nothing to do with what I'm about to ask you, but you know.
All right, let's hear it.
No, I'm just playing. All right. So if you had a piece of advice to give a new hustler out there, someone who's just trying to break into the music industry, a young blood, what would it be?
Probably persistence. Just stay at it. Like, there's so many times, if it's a band or really any hobby, anything that you do, that you're going to, like, get to a point where you feel like you want to quit, and you need to push through that, and there's going to be something on the other side that's going to make it worth it. And if you don't believe that's the case, then you probably shouldn't be doing it to begin with. So, like, when I look at us for 10 years, there are so many times in that 10 years I was like, this is a lot of stress, there's a lot of work, there's, you know, it's just not going the way I thought it would be. But we pushed through that, and we've experienced so many cool things because of that. Yeah. Just keeping at it, whether it be persistence in keeping the band alive or keeping your hobby alive, or just in the style of music, you know, you can't be chasing like every trend that comes along.
Yeah.
So like especially when you're playing, you know, on the road, you're gonna hear so many bands, you're like, they're doing this and that's cool and that's cool. Like, gain influences, but don't just completely like abandon what you're doing for the next big trend. You gotta stick to, like, you know, what the core value of the band is, you know, or whatever you're doing is. So I think persistence is huge. That'd probably be
persistence. Absolutely, man. Push through it and just keep going. You know?
Yeah.
Because being in a band can be very hard. You know, It can be, and sometimes, you know, you're gonna hate it, but being committed to it, giving it everything, and being persistent will ultimately get you something.
And I mean, I would say 99% of the people I like hang out with on a daily or weekly basis, I owe to the band. And most of my experiences in my life have been because of the band. Like, there's no reason for me to be in, like, whatever random city in Kentucky or something like that, you know. But I visited so many places because of the band, and I met so many people because of the band. I mean, Dipper's a great example. Like, met him through doing the band thing, and, you know, these are people that, like, even long after the band, whenever we, you know, stop playing shows or whatever it is, these people will still be in my life, and I'll still have these experiences because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that, man. Yeah, you develop relationships, you know, you become friends. I have lifelong friends that I met through music, so it's like, you know, I definitely like that aspect of it. Cool, man. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
This has been awesome. Thanks for having me.
Hanging out.
Now we get to jam out to these bands here.
Yeah.
peep in there and say hi to Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, Aaron from the AZ local.
Shout out to Aaron from the AZ.
Yeah, I was actually watching the None to No one right before you showed up.
Oh, cool. Are they in here today? Or?
Yeah, they were in here. I think at 2:00.
Yeah.
So an hour ago or something.
Cool.
But
we've played in here quite a bit too.
Oh yeah. No, I've practiced in this room so many times.
Yeah, we went from Francisco Studios where we had a space for a couple years to just bouncing around, since we're like, honestly, we don't practice as often as we used to. Maybe it shows, but we also been playing some of these songs for 10 years. So yeah, we do the hour of the spaces now. We'll do it here or like Perfect Timing or SER. So
nice. Yeah, I used to have a space at Francisco's, and I've practiced at SER a handful of times.
SER is really nice too.
Yeah, SER.
Now I know it's competing here. I don't know if you're sponsored by
no.
Band Oasis.
Band Oasis is cool. That's where my studio is.
Not trying to shout out the competitors.
Shout out everyone.
Yeah. Get that sponsorship money.
Get that sponsorship. Cool, man. So the band, dude, I thought you were gonna throw a handshake there. Now it's just awkward mode. Gotta go. Hey, COVID, man.
Yeah. Well, edit that part out.
But what the band? What's your social medias?
Pretty much everything / American Standards. I think with the exception of Twitter, because the name was too long, we had to take out some vowels or something. But yeah, everything: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
And you're on all the streaming platforms, Spotify.
Oh yeah, we're on pretty much everything. Honestly, I would be hard pressed to say you can't put / at the end of any website and find American Standards. Like we're pretty much on it all.
Sick, man. Cool. Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
It's been real.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Hustlers, thanks so much for hanging out with me and Brandon as we talked about having persistence, loving what you do, and being committed to it. It's been a pleasure. If you want to check me out on Instagram, you can go to @thekennyferris. You can also follow the Music Hustlers podcast, both on Instagram and Facebook @Music Hustlers Podcast. It's been real. We're out of here. Peace.
Later.